Okay, so this video is going to be talking about antinatalism and water scarcity, and I've been meaning to make this video for a while. However, of course, I have been very busy lately and I haven't had the chance to really pump out uploads, but this is going to be something that is very important to talk about, right? These are practical issues relating to current global challenges, right? And I don't think the average natalist will be able to spat out some bullshit against this, okay? And if you are a natalist, I would consider you to listen to this video, listen to everything that is being said, take into consideration other issues that we're dealing with, and consider it, and consider whether or not it's worth it to bring someone else into this, okay? Now, I wanted to start off by saying that by 2040, most of the world won't have enough water to meet year-round demand, right? So I'm going to give a list of a number of cities, right, that are facing these issues. Sao Paulo, Melbourne, Jakarta, London, Beijing, Istanbul, Tokyo, Bangalore, Barcelona, and Mexico City will all struggle with water supply issues in the coming decades, according to current trends. So if people keep consuming water at the rates that they're consuming it, right, and in actuality, this stuff is going to go up and up as Western lifestyles are kind of spreading, and I'm going to talk about that later. Then this issue is going to hit those cities harder. So these are major global cities, right? These are major economic centers and hubs of trade for different countries, right? And this is something that needs to be talked about in regards to what I'm going to say here. Now, when you look at the amount of water available to us to consume on this planet, right? 97% of it is salt water, which can't be used for things like drinking, bathing, sewage, amongst other necessities. Another 2% is frozen fresh water, which is frozen at the poles and can't be used. Maybe that would change in coming decades as they kind of melt due to climate change. But even then, it's probably going to get contaminated with the salt water and all that kind of stuff. But that's hypothetical, right? For now, that can't be used. And the amount of water that we have to use for almost all daily tasks, that, keep in mind, have to be shared among 8 billion people and growing, by the way, is 1% of the global supply. Now, when you look at the majority of the global fresh water, right, a lot of it is underground and difficult as well as expensive to get to. So we have opted to settle close to surface freshwater sources such as rivers and lakes. Of course, over the last couple of hundred years, corporations and governments have depleted aquifers and local resources for corporate, civilian, or military use, all of which have resulted in a situation where the major countries listed at the start of this video will lose around 50% of their water supply in the next 30 to 50 years. For those who are interested, I would recommend taking a look at the next Netflix kind of film/documentary, which I've linked in the description, and which goes into detail on this particular topic and on all these topics that I'm going to talk about today. Now, for all of the talk of an underpopulation crisis, over the past 50 to 70 years, water consumption has increased 7 times due to a population explosion, which our infrastructure and societies weren't prepared for and currently still aren't. All of these naive billionaires just want more and more slaves for their system, which the masses are happily doing, by the way. Just walk around any city, Western or otherwise, or go to any maternity ward and you'll see what I mean. People are still having a ton of kids, right? So people are not thinking about these current challenges. Now, additionally, as I said, climate change has ensured that rainfall, snowfall, and other natural ways of replenishing our aquifers are no longer reliable and will lead to more and more droughts as the years go by. So this is a major factor to consider as well. Now, all of this is a very general overview of the state of water scarcity around the world globally. The compassionate, ethical, and responsible viewer should be able to visualize the lifestyle that their children will have to deal with when it comes to this future issue and decide to not impose all of this on their offspring. However, I also wanted to touch on the issue of the impact that we as individuals have on water scarcity. We, so humans, need to drink a gallon of water a day. Hygiene-related activities consume another 3 gallons, so that's around 14 litres per day. Yeah. However, all of humanity's personal water consumption, as in like individual, only constitutes 8% of liquid freshwater use. The other 92%, goes towards agriculture and industry. So 70% to agriculture and 22% to industry. As the world begins to start adopting an American slash European style diet, especially in terms of meat consumption goes up and up, which ensures that more and more water is spent on cattle feed. Additionally, not everyone can eat like Americans. There isn't enough water in the world to sustain that level of lifestyle, right? Which is very important. Additionally, in most places around the world, water is traded and priced as if there will always be enough to go around. So we end up wasting too much of it on animal agriculture and luxury goods such as wine production. Think of places like South Africa, for instance. And interestingly, when it comes to a lot of countries that have water scarcity issues, and especially, not even severe, but water scarcity, water pressure issues, think places like China, South Africa, right? A lot of these places, they grow their most water intensive crops or resources in or their most prized goods that require a lot of water in the most water scarce regions, right? So I mean that's something, right? As water becomes scarcer and scarcer of a resource, these countries are not going to be able to do that, and so there's going to be challenges when it comes to their economy. Yeah, now that's interesting, right? Where was I? Yeah, so yeah, we end up wasting too much of it on these kinds of goods. Another thing that I find interesting is that we as a species value fresh water so little that we dump 2 million tons of individual and agricultural waste into it every day, which is 730 million tons a year. It's quite opening when you look at it in detail. So, especially the people that, like to praise, existence and like to praise the earth and Mother Nature and all this, and the people that have a ton of kids, right? When you look at the ways that they're teaching for their kids, are they ethical? Are they responsible in terms of their consumption of water, both on an individual but also in terms of a lifestyle level? So not just in terms of individual water consumption for them and their kids, but you think of it in terms of a wider societal kind of thing, like how are they eating a ton of meat, for instance, right? Purely in terms of water resource issues, right? I'm not talking about ethical issues and all this kind of stuff. Like I'm not talking about the ethics of eating meat or whatever. That's not relevant. I'm talking about the issues of consumption, right? And how we as humans have an impact on that, especially through the raising of cattle, right? Now, what concerns me as well, right? Private companies and corporations have started buying up the world's water supply as water scarcity issues arise worldwide, which allows them to benefit off of this issue by making a profit off of the suffering of mankind. Yeah. Now we live in a hyper-capitalist society. The only thing that really matters here is money, right? And I'm not going to get into economics now, but essentially this is going to be like a Mad Max dystopian kind of situation if we don't get some kind of mass desalination programs going, like I think Israel and Saudi Arabia had going like 10 or so years ago. But this is a concern, right? And these are serious problems, right? That we are gonna face. We're already facing it as a species, as a civilization, right? When you add on to this things like leaky pipes, right? So I'm pretty sure that I read somewhere that in a lot of cities, 20 to 30 or 40% of fresh water just gets lost through like leaky pipes, which is, it's incredible, isn't it? So, I mean that should tell you something, shouldn't it? Right. That's how much water is being lost to leaky pipes, right? People leaving taps on, things like this. Although the main issue isn't with individuals, it's with the sewage systems and, the drainage systems and them being outdated in most cities, and especially as more and more people flood into these cities looking for work and people procreating mindlessly in a lot of cases, then this issue is just going to get worse and worse. There's going to be more and more pressure put on the infrastructure and cities are going to struggle to cope, right? So, yeah. Now that's pretty much it for this video. However, I wanted to leave on this PSA for any natalists that are lurking on this channel, or people in general. If you look at this, ethically, right? And you're looking at this even from a resource perspective, right? Because you are bringing someone into this world. It doesn't matter what your personal views are. You need to take a look ethically at what you're creating. Is that worth? Are the so-called pleasures of life, or even the benefits that you'll get by raising children worth the costs Are they worth it? I doubt it, right? So these are things that we need to consider as people, right? Especially when it comes to procreational ethics, because I don't really see people, especially in the antinatalist community, talking about these kinds of practical issues. I mean, I know I've said this before, but I mean, this is something that's very important, right? Water is literally everything, right? Without water, people die within 3 days. And everything that we do, right, is literally, I mean, we need it for every little thing: cooking, cleaning, um, bathing, brushing teeth, washing hands, all these kinds of things, right? So this is very important to understand. These are very important topical current issues. This is not some, whining or depression or whatever. Like, this has nothing to do with that, right? And if people are refusing to understand these arguments, I mean, that should tell you everything you need to know about most people, shouldn't it? It's an unfortunate reality, right? People need to think about this. And most countries that are going through these problems are in the developing world, and this is where people are having like a ton of kids, right? So this is important stuff, right? We don't have, I mean, on current trends, the whole world wants to live like the West, as I said, right? And on the current trends, we just can't sustain that lifestyle. We can't sustain that reality, right? So I'm going to leave it there. If you like this video, leave a like and a subscribe. Also consider sharing as well. Um, I might make a part 2 to this. I don't think I need to, honestly. I think I've said what I needed to say, but I will leave those videos in the descriptions and relevant resources as well. Take a look at that. It's very important. And yeah, another thing as well, I wanted to talk about how many people lack things like clean water day to day. I mean, especially in the West, we may take this for granted, and we've kind of grown accustomed to taking these things for granted. But in a lot of sub-Saharan African countries, a lot of places across the Middle East, although it's not really as common there, but a lot of sub-Saharan African countries, a lot of places in South Asia, increasingly China as well, are having these massive issues, right? China's had water scarcity issues for around 10, 20 years now. Their aquifers are drying up. I'd recommend you guys taking a look at those documentaries. They're very interesting, and they're very poignant, right? They're very topical, right? So I'm going to leave that there, and see you guys in the next one. Peace.